let's just do a demo. Okay, so um, one of the things I want to talk about is with Scaffold-ETH. If you go to scaffold.eth.io and you go to docs, there is a extensions section right here. And then if you click on available extensions, there's a bunch of extensions. Um, this is a new system that we just came up with maybe in the last like 3 months or so, 6 months maybe. And it gives you the ability to use a technology inside of Scaffold-ETH as like kind of like an add-on. So it's kind of like you're setting up Scaffold-ETH, but you're also just using an extension package. So there's one for subgraph. So that's what we're going to use today. But there's other ones. There's one for Ponder. There's one for on-chain kit for base. There's an ERC21, which will just automatically spin you up a token. There's an EIP712, which will automatically allow you to sign and verify messages. So these are very cool, and this should be growing a lot actually. So we'll start to see a lot get added here. So if you're using Scaffold-ETH, check the extensions to see if there's an extension available. So we're going to use the subgraph. Okay, so real quickly, we're going to use the subgraph to do it. So the command is very simple. It's right here. So we're going to use npx just like we normally do, create ETH at latest, but we're going to do -e subgraph. Sorry, this is probably very hard to read. So we're going to do it like this. So let's grab that. And we will call this yo. Okay, so same thing. What chain do we want to use? Let's do hard hat. We'll do CDO. Well, that's loading up. Okay, so that shouldn't take too long. We'll give it 1 second. What else do I want to show real quick? If you want to learn more about the graph, you can go to thegraph.com, and then there's a whole section, there's a whole docs section here. And then there's a couple of products that we have, the Explorer, which allows us to look for data that's already available to us. So if, as an example, there's Uniswap, Uniswap's upstreams, Premia, Snapshot for governance, Live Peer for video. There's a bunch of them. I see another question. So WASM basically organizes the contract into more easily read format. Yeah, so the WASM is what processes the data and stores it. What makes it easy to access is the graph node. So graph node is written by what do you call it? The graph protocol. So it is basically a binary that runs. So you can see it here. It's graph node. Oh, graph node hosted. And it basically is what does all the processing. So this is what, all the querying and presenting. So it's a graph node. WASM runs on graph node, and WASM is what processes the data. The graph is different from an Oracle. Yes, the graph is definitely different than Oracle. Oracle is for like getting like off-chain data on-chain, or like querying off-chain data inside of a network that's trusted. The graph is designed for storing data that can be that is already available in blockchains. So any kind of data that's on a blockchain, storing it in an off-chain way that's easy to query. Okay, so let's see if this is done. Okay, it's done. Okay, so let's go into the Yo directory here. And same thing, we're going to do yarn chain, yarn start, and yarn deploy. Okay. Now, because we're using the subgraph for this particular setup, it's a special package of Scaffold-ETH. So I actually need another window open. So I need to do, oh, so I need to actually have a fourth window open. And that's because what we're doing is we're going to be simulating the graph inside of Docker. So this setup here, we're going to run this inside of Docker. So I need to have Docker installed. So if you want to try to do this at home, you can install Docker Desktop, which is basically just like a Docker You don't need to understand Docker too much, but basically it's a container orchestration tool. So it allows you to do like containers, which are kind of like virtual machines, but even smaller for different processes. So Docker is very useful if you want to run something on your laptop or your desktop that you don't want to have to completely install on your operating system. It kind of allows you to like simulate a particular stack. So that's what we're going to be doing is actually simulating this setup. So this is Graph Node, this is Postgres, and then it's also another tool called IPFS. So it's three containers. And so inside of this command, inside of this Docker, inside of this package, there's a command that allows us to do that, which is one command. So you just need to have Docker installed, and you just type yarn run node like that. What that will do is spin up the Docker setup. So Docker is, again, it's container based. It's already configured for you. You don't need to understand Docker, but everything is running in Docker. This is only for local development. So at some point, if you're at a hackathon, you probably don't want to just do stuff locally. You'll probably push stuff to the actual decentralized network. So we're only using Docker for our local testing and local configuration. At some point, you won't have to use this anymore, and you can just use the graph tooling. But for right now, we're going to use this. Okay. So you'll know it's working or set up when it says info downloading latest blocks from Ethereum. So you can see that right here. Info downloading latest blocks from Ethereum. So it's basically got everything up and running. So we can kind of start taking a look. So first, let's just look at Scaffold-ETH real quick. So Scaffold-ETH, same thing, runs on port 3000. Okay. But you'll notice that we have all the normal stuff, but we also have this subgraph tab right here, right here. Now, all this does is it walks you through how to set up the subgraph locally. Okay. So we already did yarn run node, right? To spin up our environment. Next thing we need to do is do yarn local create. Okay. So what this is going to do is create a special instance of our subgraph. So I can just do that over here. There it goes. Created it. You only need to do this once, right? And then this next one is to ship our subgraph. Now, I'm not going to look at the subgraph yet, but I'm just going to deploy it because it already comes with a subgraph. So you don't need to write it out of the box, and it's already written for the current contract. So we can do yarn local ship. And what it's going to do is it's going to basically compile, it's going to run this tool called Graph CLI. It's going to compile down into WASM, into like the binary. It's going to test all of the sources and destinations for the Postgres and the schema. It's going to make sure, everything looks good. It's going to compile down, create the ABI and create the manifest. And then it's going to say, okay, it's completed. It was successful. What version do you want to label this as? So we just have to choose a version basically, because as you make changes to your subgraph, you increase the version. So we'll just do 1. Okay. So it's going to take the subgraph and it's going to deploy it. That's it. And then it's going to give us this URL. Okay. So this is the query URL. It's available here on this endpoint. There's actually 2 of them. It's the same thing. So if we open that up, we will get this graph IQL window. So if we go back to Scaffold-ETH here and we go to debug contracts, let's make some changes because we haven't actually used our contract. We deployed our contract, the same one that we always do, the unstoppable apps. We have the greeting. We can update it. So let's change it to H.E.R and let's just hit send. Oh, I don't have any gas. I need to get gas, grab some funds for gas, and then hit it again. So H.E.R Kevin was here. Let's just send a couple of messages. I love you guys. Okay. And hit send. Boom. Okay, cool. So I've sent a few greetings, right? How do I get that data? It's really hard to get right now. Like I would need to use the event hook to query all of the events that happen in my smart contract. And if I did this like, I don't know, a million times, everyone's coming in here constantly changing the greeting, we're going to have lots and lots and lots and lots of data. So what we want to do is be able to query that data in the easy way, right? We want to make one query to get all of that data. So we've done that. We've basically deployed our subgraph. So if we come over here and we look at the Explorer and we look at the greetings and we look at the first, I don't know, let's just do first 100, give us the order by created date, created at, give us the direction, descending, give us the greeting, the ID, who the sender was, and if there was any value and what the transaction hash is, and then I can hit play. And there we go. I get all the data back in one query. So this is the GraphQL query. So it says query, my query, give me the first 100, order by created date, in descending order, and give me all the data that I care about here. So here's what we get. We get all of the things that we just sent. So if we go all the way to the bottom, we'll see, here we go. H.E.R, Kevin was here. Love you guys. And yo, right? It's all the stuff I sent. And it's available in one simple like HTTP query. Like I don't need to like query the RPC, the blockchain, and get the data that I care about. I can grab this whole query just by doing this GraphQL query. So what does that look like in our application? So let's take a look. So if we go to Scaffold-ETH and we go to the packages directory, again, we'll see that there's 3 folders now. We used to only have just the hard hat and Next.js. We have a subgraph folder, okay? So inside of that subgraph is the subgraph config. We'll get to that in a second. I don't want to overwhelm you guys because that part gets a little kind of crazy. But let's look at the front end. Like, how do we query that data? Well, we go to Next.js and we go to our app and we go to our subgraph page and we can see there's a component page and there's a table. What this thing does is it says, okay, let's query using Apollo. And here's the query, the GraphQL query. So it's very similar to what we see here, right? See this query? Very similar to this one. And we do a GraphQL request and then get back the data in a response using use query. And then we just loop over all that data using a map right here. And then for each particular map, we have a table entry. And we do some things like display the address really pretty, but this is all TypeScript, and this is how we're rendering the data inside of our application. So let's see what that looks like. Let's go there, go to subgraph, and go to the bottom, and there it is. So we're able to just instantly just do one refresh and get all the data. So right now there's 16 total greetings. So if I come over here to debug contracts and say, what is up? And hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then come over here. Now they're there. So they're already indexed. So what's happening is the graph is just running this runtime, constantly listening, and then displaying that data using that GraphQL query. Now it's going to cap out if I do like 4 more. So if I do like hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's do a few. So now it's only going to be able to show me 25 because I have a cap limit on my query of 25. But maybe I could change it to 40. And there we go. Now I'm getting more. So you get this flexibility to just make GraphQL queries to get the data that you care about. Okay. Okay. Let me stop for a second and see if anyone has questions, but I do want to show the config file a little bit. If you're brave enough to to see it. Okay. This is amazing, very useful. No questions? Any questions at all? Does it kind of make sense, like what we're doing? Okay, cool. Yes, it is magic. Okay, so here we go. So let's take a look at the config files. Okay, so basically, I mentioned it earlier. There's three config files. There's the manifest, which is the high level config file that basically like points at everything. So it's what network you care about, and then the data types, how you want to store them, schema, and then the how you want to handle mapping, then route and routing the data. And then there is the schema, which is how you want to store the data, like kind of like the database table. And then the last one is the actual handlers, like the mapping, like how you're actually processing the data. So the high level config is the subgraph YAML, which is this file here, which is, again, it's what network we care about. And it's the address of the network of the smart contract, sorry. And it's how we want to store the data. So those are the entities. So those are where the data is going to be stored in GraphQL. Well, it's where it's going to be stored in Postgres, but how it will be exposed with GraphQL. And then the handler is like how we process the data. So in other words, like in this case, we have a greeting, right? We update the greeting with whatever we want. The data that comes off of the greeting in an event is the address, who actually sent the greeting, what the greeting was, which is a string. Did they pay any value in the transaction? Yes or no, true or false? And if so, if there was value, how much value was it? Unsigned integer. So there's four data types that come off of that greeting change event. And so we want to handle those with this handle greeting change. So this is how we want to store stuff, and this is how we want to process stuff. So if we look at the source folder, and we also reference the ABI, which we talked about the ABI briefly a couple days ago, but it's like the interface. So the graph knows how to read and write those data types. But if we look inside the source folder, there's a schema. And so we have, in our case, we care about two things. We have a greeting that changes, which is probably the primary thing, but we also have the sender, like who actually sent the greeting. So what we do is we keep track of both of those in separate database tables. So in this case, we keep track of all the greetings and we keep track of all the senders. So if there's a new sender at any time, we need to create a new database entry. If there's a new greeting by that sender, then we create a new greeting entry. And on those two entries, we can link those together using this derived from function to create a kind of like an array, but it's a virtual kind of array. Basically, it just allows us to say, hey, anytime that this sender sends a greeting, attach it to this greetings object and link these together. So a sender might have like hundreds of greetings. Like right now, I have like 40 that I've set. But a new sender might only send one. So, it's kind of like a relational database in that sense. And then there's things like the ID, which is like a unique string. It's like a hexadecimal string. There's the sender, which is the address. There's the actual greeting, which is a string, the premium, the value, and then these come from the block. So this is like when it was created, the timestamp, and what the transaction hash was. And then greeting count is a custom one here, which we'll show that in a second. But that's like keeping track of how many greetings this person sent. And this is a timestamp as well. So this is how we want to store the data. The next thing is how we want to process the data. So this is probably the most confusing part. This is like, we call it the handlers or the mappings. And it's like basically saying like, all right, every time this event happens, run this function and process the data according to how I wrote the code, right? Like so. So the cool thing about the graph is the graph has a CLI tool that will generate all this stuff for you out of the box. And if you just go to the graph.com and you go to Studio up here on the top, Subgraph Studio, and you create a subgraph, you'll need to connect your wallet. Let me do that real quick. Connect your wallet, confirm, but they give you the ability to um, create a subgraph on here. Actually, let me just do one real quick. I'll just call it, create subgraph. And then there's a CLI option down here on the right. It's a little slow right now. I don't know why. There we go. And then there's a CLI option down here on the right. It's a little slow right now. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why it's not loading, but we'll come back to that. Anyways, there's a CLI tool to automatically create this thing for you here. So don't feel too daunted about this. If you go to a hackathon, we have these little cheat sheets that will walk you through to do this in like 5 minutes, and it will generate all this code for you. But let's just take a look at the code real quick. So what we do here is we say, okay, every time a greeting happens and an event triggers called greeting change, load the sender, create the sender string, which is like the ID, and try to load it. Like, has this person ever sent a greeting before? If so, load it into memory. If not, then go ahead and create an entry, a new entry for them, a new entry into Postgres called using the sender string and using the sender data type or the sender schema. If they've already sent a greeting before and they're already in the system, then increase the count of how many greetings they had. So this is cool because we're actually doing this like math where we're saying like, oh, it's the first time that this person's ever sent a greeting. So let's go ahead and set it to 1. But if they've already sent a greeting before in the past, let's go ahead and increase it by 1 because there's always going to be only one greeting. So we're just basically counting how many greetings they make. So we do that this is for the sender. Then we do the same thing for the greeting here. So we say, well, is there a new greeting? Well, it's always a new greeting because every time you send one is new. So we create the string based off of the transaction hash. And then we set all of the values for the object here. And these all come from the event parameters. So we get from the event, the parameters, the greeting, the premium, the value they sent, what the greeting was, the timestamp, and then the hash, which is the transaction hash. And then we just save that stuff here. So this is what actually saves it to the database. All right, right here. Same here. So this actually saves the data. Then when someone comes in later and wants to query the data, it's already available. It's already saved in the schema, and GraphNode already knows how to provide that data as a response. Okay. Okay. I know it's a little confusing. Let me see if there's any questions. Is ETH scanner not doing the same thing? I'm not sure about what ETH scanner is, but if you're talking about Etherscan, Etherscan is not a decentralized thing, and it does not have a GraphQL API. They have like a normal standard API, I think. I don't know. They don't have an anonymous API. You have to pay for it, but it's a centralized solution. This is a decentralized thing, so it's a little bit more powerful, and it's a little more flexible. Like you can create a subgraph how you want versus like in a centralized solution, you get the data how they give it to you, right? So the graph is focused on querying data. Yes, storing data, indexing data, and querying data. More about, yeah, storing, I would say, but the querying stuff, there's other ways to query the data coming. So right now it's all pretty much done with GraphQL, but that might change. Like you might be able to eventually use Postgres, stuff like that. Yes, hackathon cheat sheets are cool. Cool. Does anyone want to come off mute and ask a question? Okay, let's go back then. If there's no more questions, I don't know why this is not loading. Let's see. I just want to show you how easy it is to create a subgraph from scratch. So let me go to the studio, go to Yo, if it loads. I feel like I need to like sign something to get it to show up, or I don't know. It's kind of weird. Let me try disconnecting. Connect. Okay, confirm. Yo, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so let's pretend we're gonna make a subgraph real quick. I'm gonna do CryptoPunks. So I'm gonna do CryptoPunks address ETH mainnet. Just gonna find it. So here's the address for CryptoPunks. So let's use this Yo one to create a subgraph really quick. So first, I want you to install the CLI, which I've already done. So you do yarn global add and then add the CLI. I could do it real quick if I wanted to. Let's make a new tab, install it, just make sure it's got the newest version. Next, it wants me to create the project. So I do graph init. While that's waiting, there we go. So we'll do graph init studio yo. It's Ethereum. It's called yo. I'm going to create it here in the yo directory. We'll do foo. I don't know. I guess I already made something yo. Okay, I need the address. So give me the address. I'm going to choose mainnet. I'm going to put the contract address for CryptoPunks. It's going to try to fetch the ABI. Let's try to fetch it again. Oh no. I heard that Etherscan like recently changed something. Um, so it wants the ABI. Uh, hmm. So basically, like you need to give it the ABI. So for a while, it was getting the ABI from Etherscan. I don't know why this is not working. Let me try one more time. That's not what I want. I want Arweave. Ethereum. There we go. Ah, okay. I think it could be that the API for Etherscan is down. So normally you would say like, do you want to retry? You could say no. Um, Also, it can't get the start block. So we say no, we can manually put the ABI path if we had it. Um, so you would need to like basically put that in there. I don't have it right now, so I can't do it, and I don't want to waste everyone's time. But you would put in the ABI path if you had it manually, and then you would also put in the start block manually as well, if you needed to. And that's just because I think Etherscan is API is down right now. So okay, so that was a failed thing, but usually this it's very easy to do. There's just like an issue right now. Okay, so any other questions that you guys have? So this is the hardest topic. Yeah, so it is a little complicated. I think the easiest way you can get used to subgraphs is just by deploying some, like basically like go onto the subgraph studio, create a few, like find interesting like subgraphs that you want to or sorry, interesting contracts. So like CryptoPunks is kind of popular, Crypto Coven, like some other NFT platform, maybe, and try to figure out if you can like just create a subgraph on your own using this kind of like CLI tool, right? To do it. It will literally build it for you. And then you can look at the code, like go in and then get more comfortable with just understanding this, like take this code, put it into Chat GPT and say, hey, like what is this code exactly doing? If you don't understand assembly script, it will kind of like decode it for you. There's tons of workshops and stuff like that on the graph. Try to watch some more of those. There's some by me, Simone, Marcus. We also have the Graph Builders office hours that we do today, actually, in an hour from now. So that's always valuable. They have someone come on and talk about the graph in some context. And so, yeah, hopefully that helps. Trying to install a subgraph CLI, but it keeps giving me errors. Not sure why. Yeah, let me know what the error is, S. Feel free to ping me on Telegram and I can try to help you. Kevin Jones creates on Telegram. So, okay, yeah, so the recap would be great. Yeah, I can do that. So essentially we talked about the graph today and why you need it. And most importantly, I think we're going to share these slides with everyone. But really, when it comes down to it, is that, generally speaking, reading from the blockchain is not the most effective way to get data from the blockchain because blockchains are really incentivized for writing, proof of stake, some are proof of work, but really you pay some gas that kind of guarantees that your transaction gets saved on the blockchain, but you don't pay gas to read data. So it's very hard to read it. And so you really need something. Also, if you want to keep historical data, like you can do what's called time travel queries with the graph. And so this whole solution can be solved by using the graph as kind of like a middleware layer, right? So you still have your DApp that queries the network, or sorry, writes transactions for security. Your smart contract emits events. The mapping modules that I just showed off get process the data and store it in the Postgres and then expose it with GraphQL. And this just allows you to have this kind of like middleware layer for your data. I don't even know what this one is. This is like a yeah. Cool. I hope that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions, guys? We have a couple more minutes.
Uh, I have a question more about the Grave program advocates. So I know a few people from ERDAO are, are taking part of this program. So if you can learn more about it, just for future, uh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So the Graph Advocates program is kind of going through a transition right now. Um, so it's kind of a little bit up in the air, like what the current implementation is. But you can still reach out and start the process. Let's see, I don't remember the website, but let's see, Graph Advocates. If I can find it. Graph Advocates. Okay, so it's graphadvocates.com. So it's basically like a way for you to get involved in the graph ecosystem and do different roles. So for a while we had, these were the current roles. These might change, but for the most part, you can be an evangelist, host events, you can create content, videos, blogs, Twitter posts, stuff like that. You can also do things like translate into a local language for different things like docs and blogs, stuff like that. There's also some community people that get involved and host like community events. And then we also have like technical teachers. So depending on where you want to sit. But again, this is going through a change. But you can still definitely reach out if you're interested. You can just come here and click apply here. And then there's like this become an advocate. And oh, the form is unavailable. Okay, so you can just send in a message here, or just let me know and I can get you in touch with someone if you're interested in it. But I know that they are revamping it right now. There's also community grants too. So if you want to get a grant to do something or build something like host an event or build something, you can also do a community grant there as well. Cool.
cool, thank you. Don't
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
to share me the slide, and I will send everything by email to everyone. And yeah. It was a great presentation again, and thanks a lot for all your involvement during these 3 days, because it's so precious for us. Just for starting. And yeah, tomorrow will be with Eda, so more on the front end side, and it will be the last workshop from Better Guild, and yeah, just if you want be to know everything about Better Guild, don't hesitate to go in their website, because they're running a lot of initiative, and they are really present during international events. Don't hesitate to take care of these events, because some builders are there, and it's the cream of the builder. So yeah, just to let you know.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. And yeah, I'm open book. So if anyone needs anything, just message me on Telegram. Again, it's Kevin Jones Creates. I'm also on Twitter, Crypto Mastery _. And I'll see you guys hopefully at DevCon. And if you need anything, just let me know.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. And yeah, see you tomorrow, everyone. And thanks again, Kevin, for everything. Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.